Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Drive Time on Radio Ikhlas, 107.8 FM, the voice of sincerity. Now, we were talking earlier on about Saudi Arabia's plans to demolish three of the oldest masjids in Medina Sharif. We've got Asghar Bukhari from MPACUK UK joining us now. Assalamu alaikum, Asghar, welcome back to Drive Time.
Wa alaikum assalam, thanks for having me back.
It's been a while since you've been on.
I know, you don't invite me enough. What's going on, Tanvir?
I hear you have a new job now. You're too busy doing these public speeches, should I say. Asghar, what have you made about the developments in Medina?
I mean, heartbreaking. What can I say? I mean, this is just another one of the catalogue of insults that the government of Saudi, if you can call them a government, Saudi Arabia have done to the Muslim world and to our history. It stretches back, since they took power. And they've destroyed the Prophet's birthplace, his house, his wife's house. They've destroyed the Prophet's mother's grave, the tombs of Hamza, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and other martyrs. I mean, these are invaluable sites since the dawn of Islam that are the historical records and proof and kind of cherished by every single Muslim around the world, and yet we will no longer ever be able to see them.
Right. Now, also 10 years ago, a masjid belonged to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The grandson was dynamited. Pictures of demolition were secretly taken and smuggled out of the kingdom, showed the religious police celebrating as the building collapsed. It's pretty sad really. Now the Saudi monarchy view themselves as the sole authority to decide what happens to the cradle of Islam. Are they right people to make these decisions?
I don't think there's the problem is this: there are a lot of Saudi-funded organisations within Britain and throughout the world because of the petrodollars that they spend funding these institutions, and that's why a lot of these Muslims are silent, and a lot of these mosques are silent about the disgraceful behaviour of the Saudi kingdom and their attacks against the historical sites of our Prophet. The very people who go around claiming that they love the Sunnah and they love the Prophet are the very people who are least likely to do anything because of the funding that their mosque gets from the Saudi government. I mean, how can we honestly say a government that not only destroys the dynamites the martyrs' graves of Hamza radiallahu ta'ala and so many others, the destruction of the grave of the Sahaba, Jannat al-Baqi, the mother of our Prophet's grave was destroyed. The house of our Prophet was destroyed. 4 of the mosques in the Battle of the Trench, the famous Battle of the Trench, where Islam was almost wiped off this earth, were destroyed by this government. I mean, you could go on and on, let alone their kind of torture of Muslims, their funding of American attacks against Iraq, all of these. Can we honestly say after all of this that this is a government that should be in control of the holy sites of Mecca and Medina?
Now,
we've allowed it.
Saudi Arabia would argue that they are preventing shirk, like idol worshipping. Is that what it is, or is it just about making money?
I mean, if anyone goes to Saudi Arabia now, I mean, there's reports all over the media, and Muslims are coming back and realising it might as well be Las Vegas. There's Starbucks there. Starbucks, a well-known a company, with links to Israel in Mecca now. It's not a holy site anymore. They've turned it into a cash-making machine, and have no regard for any of the Islamic history that we have. As far as this argument of shirk, isn't it disgusting? Isn't it disgraceful that a group, whatever their belief is, are so narrow-minded that they cannot tolerate any other opinion or branch or thinking within the Muslim world, that they have to dynamite the graves of the Prophet's companions, and accuse other Muslims of idol worship? Isn't that a disgraceful way to think? Isn't that what's leading to Muslims killing Muslims right around the world? Because you can't see another Muslim having a difference of opinion. You have to think that he is a kafir or an idol worshipper or a committing shirk. You just can't see a difference of opinion. You're so blinded by your bigotry, your narrow view, that you cannot let another Muslim have a difference of opinion. And such is their extreme version of Islam, this vile, extreme version of Islam, that they will actually blow up their own prophets' houses, graves, friends of the prophet's graves, just to prove their point.
It does seem that any memories of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ are being wiped away. Definitely in Mecca, there's hardly anything left now. Do you feel that, through the destruction, Muslims are losing their intellectual foundations and making Muslims foundationless?
I mean, look, we all saw a program on, I can't remember which channel, but on terrestrial TV in Britain here, claiming that the Prophet didn't even exist and there was no evidence for it. Yeah, and these are the ideological attacks by the enemies of Islam that are putting it forward. And who are the helpers of these attacks? Who are erasing the history of our Prophet? Who is erasing it? They've actually built a public toilet over one of the graves of the Sahaba. Now, this is such a low, shameless, but almost kind of heartless way of behaving without consultation. Okay, things need to improve. We need infrastructure within Mecca and Medina. But is that nothing to do with the rest of the Muslims? Or is it just this kind of, 10 million people within Saudi that make this decision? Have the billion Muslims that who follow the Prophet of God have no say in this? Can we have no input into what's happening there? How dictatorial? How disgraceful is it that they would more readily listen to the American CIA than they would a billion Muslims? And these are the guardians of our holy sites. They would more readily do anything the Americans have told them, including kill 1 million people in Iraq and have bases in the Holy Land, than they would ever do about listening to the Muslims themselves and saying, please don't blow up the mother of our Prophet's grave. Yeah. Don't build a public toilet over the Sahaba's grave.
Now, why are people not protesting? A lot of people are quite surprised. When the Prophet ﷺ's documentary was put onto YouTube, not documentary, film, everybody started protesting. Why are people not protesting now? Is there a lack of knowledge? Or is it because Saudi Arabia controls so many Muslim countries?
I think there's three things. One, definitely a lack of political power within the Muslims. They're so unpoliticized. Islam has just become I know I'm harsh when I say this, but everything keeps pointing to it. Islam has become a dead religion. You go to the mosque, afterwards you go home and you go to sleep, and that's all Islam is. It's never about any justice, any great cause anymore. The Prophet came, he freed slaves, he gave women their rights, he abolished usury. All of these great monumental things, all of them are nothing now. All Islam is, did you pay your 5 times a month? Have you got a bed? Are you wearing the jubbah? Have you got a hat on your head? These things are that's Islam is like a shell. So how can you ask these people who think Islam is nothing but praying 5 times a day to do any great deed in this world? They don't even think that's part of Islam. So the way Islam is taught is like a dead thing. Yeah, and so how can you ask anything of people who follow something that's dead? The second thing I would say is that Islam is also funded so heavily by this extreme branch with Saudi petrodollars that most of the mosques, or a large proportion of mosques in Britain, are funded by the Saudis. They're hardly going to be the ones that are going to be crying out and saying, this is a disgrace. They're going to keep their mouth shut, aren't they? They're not going to say anything at all. Yeah. So we're on the one hand, the people who have got the courage are taught to do nothing with Islam but just pray and pacify themselves, and those others are actively supporting the Saudi regime because money buys their silence.
Right.
I can only put it down to that.
I suppose it does. Now, what can people do to protest? Can they do anything? Can they make a difference?
Well, there's always something you can do, but it's never good enough that the Muslims, what they do is they wake up for, half an hour or, a week, shout and scream, and they go back to sleep. This is not the way we have to do it. What we have to start to do is get politically conscious, educated, start to organize ourselves. So I was reading something today that was very interesting about the way people describe the Christian rise of Christian Zionism within America, and now it's one of the most powerful forces in the world. And what he said is this: he said that before it was just energy. Yeah, lots of people believed in it, but it could do nothing because it was just energy in all different places. No one had any direction. But he said what we started to do was we started to organize that energy, channel that energy. And by organizing that energy, by educating the people and organizing them by our churches and things like that, then we became the most powerful force in America. And I realized something when I read that. I thought, oh my God, the mosques and our Islamic institutions, our scholars, we have all this potential within the Muslims. But they're politically uneducated. They don't believe Islam has any political motive within the world today. And it's not channeled. You have to organize yourself in a way to educate and start to become politically organized. And when you do that, that's when things change. Salahuddin didn't conquer Jerusalem because he was disorganized and the Muslims were just randomly shouting in the street. They started to work and activate and awaken their consciousness, and they became a focused, organized force. Our mosques are the organizing centers, and they are dead because they don't allow politics, and the Muslims are taught that Islam is unpolitical and therefore is also dead. So what I would say is the first thing you can do is you need to join Muslim groups that are politically awake and start to organize and educate yourself as to becoming a politically conscious community. This evil is just the beginning. It's going to get far, far worse. I always say this, and I'm always proven right. The dark days are coming for the Muslims, and I would say that if you can be either one of these sleeping Muslims, or you can wake up and start to politically educate yourself. Now you can read, but also join Muslim groups that are already active in the political struggle to protect the Ummah. But if you want a quick snapshot of you want to do just something right now, well then you write to your MP and demand that he put some pressure on the Saudi government. It's not going to be enough. But if you're not willing to really put some effort in and change the way you live by educating yourself politically and joining a political Muslim organization, then there's not much. You can't complain. You do what you can do.
Okay. Now, talking about masjid extensions, Stratford is. I don't know if they've got plans to build the largest masjid in Europe, but I think that could be pretty close. Now, something that you're objecting to, Asghar.
It is, yeah. They have got plans of building the largest mosque in the whole of Europe, and it's been all over the press about it, and MPACUK are opposed to it, and we're opposed to it for a very simple reason. When we approached the mosque, we asked them a very simple question. We said, are there going to be women who are allowed to sit on the committee and make decisions? And they refuse to allow women. When we ask them, are the local community, young people, as well as old, black as well as white, allowed to elect who is on that committee, they declined.
Okay.
So what you have is a mosque that doesn't allow women, and neither does it allow the input of the community to make the decisions on the affairs of men. We don't want Saudi Arabia in Stratford. We want the mosque that represents the people, an open, inclusive, politically awakened mosque that allows every Muslim to take part in it. Not another mosque that is run by a bunch of goons or thugs or just their powerhouse to make them feel, respected in the community.
I think goons and thugs is a bit harsh. So basically what you said was that they said no young people and no women either.
They didn't say no young people. They said the local community, it doesn't matter, young or old, were not allowed to elect who was going to sit on that committee.
Right.
Which is, come on, let's face it, Tanvir, you can't deny this. Most mosques in Britain are exactly the same.
They are, yeah.
The difference here is that this is going to be the biggest mosque in Europe that is going to deny our mothers, our sisters, our sons, our brothers any say. If it's a backstreet mosque, well, that's bad enough, but to allow the biggest beacon of Islam in the whole of Europe to be so backward, No, that's a crime.
And what reasons did they give to you for not allowing, women onto the committee?
I wish that they had given a reason. I wish they were that forward-thinking, that they had some logic to it. They were so insular and so aggressive that they simply said, we don't have to tell you, the answer is no. Now, when you are so unaccountable to the public, when you are so arrogant that if a Muslim asks you a question, you don't even have the decency to answer what you're going to do with the biggest institution in the whole of Europe, then you don't deserve to lead. Hazrat Umar was challenged in the mosque by a woman. That is one of the greatest men that ever lived. And he answered and said I was wrong in what he was advocating. And yet here we have people who are nowhere near the power or the greatness of Hazrat Umar, even refusing to speak to members of the Muslim community who they now want to lead, saying, who the hell are you? Why should I answer your question? And if you don't believe me, Tanvir, you own a radio show, you're far more important than me and far more well respected than myself.
I wouldn't say that, but yeah, go on.
Or most Muslims would. Go call them, ask them yourself, why are you not allowing it? Let's see what response you get. I'm sure your viewers are going to be very interested.
Okay, I think there could be an interesting point. However, you still shouldn't go against the building of a masjid. It's going to be the biggest in Europe. It's a great achievement for Muslims. There's already probably a lot of people at the BNP and the EDL against it already. Maybe once they've established the masjid, maybe then you can start to speak to them about getting some sisters onto the committee.
Please, again, I just want you to think about your own town, New Birmingham, yeah?
Derby.
Or Derby, it doesn't matter where, yeah. Right? Anyway, I live in Ilford and they're the same. Birmingham, they're the same. Manchester, the same. Derby, the same. It's all the same. You go to a small back street mosque and ask them to change and see if they don't get their guys to come out and rough you up if you ask a bit too much, yeah? Now, how are you going to change the biggest mosque in Europe? Don't tell me that let them do it one day they'll be better. They're never better. I'm saying prove to us that you are open and inclusive and are following the sunnah of our Prophet and not denying our sisters their rights and not denying the people, the community their rights, or you shouldn't be in a position to have that mosque. So no, I don't believe that a mosque that is racist, that is sexist, that denies the Muslims the right to even organize their affairs is a good thing. I think that's a bad thing. I think that's more of the bad that we currently have. Okay. And I'd rather have less of that bad.
How would you go around changing the mindset of these people?
They only understand one thing, pressure. They only understand one thing. I wish they understood reason. I wish they understood, sincerity, but they don't. What they understand is pressure. So either a legal action has to be taken to allow our sisters in, which MPACUK is going to be pioneering in the next year or so, and we're going to be taking mosques to court that refuse to allow women on the committees or in their halls. And two, if not that, and you think, well, that's too hard. Well, then, brother, those people listening in, go now. Go to your mosque and speak to them privately and change them before it's too late. But what you cannot have, what you cannot ask, is another 50 years of mosques being run like closed goon clubs for old men to act out their egos. This is our community. We're suffering. Our people are being attacked in the street. Our brothers being jailed and extradited to America while our mosques do nothing. You cannot ask those people who are locked up in prison, away from their families, their mothers crying, their wives alone, their children will never see their fathers, to just sit there and wait for you until you think that your mosque is ready for a change. You change it. And if you don't change it, well then we are going to change it.
Okay, true. Unfortunately, Asghar, we have run out of time. Jazakallah for coming on today. Hopefully, you never know if you do keep pressing. You never know you might get some sisters on the Masjid committee. I'm sure you're not a sort of person who's going to give up very lightly.
Yeah, I'm not, and I hope there's a lot more Muslims out there who finally are going to have had enough and say, I'm going to change my mosque one way or the other.
Okay, Jazakallah, Asghar, Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Assalamu alaikum.